Hi Nathaniel, here is your Unit 4 test. Just going to go over all the questions with you and let you know how you did. Just so you know as well, there's a couple things that you need to do before I can do a midterm report for you, even though you've finished to the end of the Unit 4 assignments. I need you to go back and look for the discussion assignments where you need to click on the link that takes you to the discussion board, and there's a couple of questions there that you have to answer. One of them is in Unit 4 concerning the factoring, and so if you could get those finished, I can do a midterm report card for you because you're halfway through the course, so you're doing really great in terms of your pace. I think you're right on track to be able to finish close to the end of July. So for part A, everything looks really, really good here. You're showing some really good understanding of all of these concepts. So this one here is correct, correct. I was going to mention to you that in question 3, there is a shortcut available there, and I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but when you have something where you're squaring a binomial, there's a little pattern that you can use that allows you to take a shortcut whenever you have what's called a perfect square trinomial. A perfect square trinomial comes from multiplying one binomial by itself or squaring a binomial. What happens is the first term is the first term squared in your bracket. So 4x times 4x is 16x squared. The very last term is going to be the 9 squared. That's 81. 9 times 9 is 81. And the middle term is going to be 2 times the product of the two terms in your binomial. So in this case, we have 4x times 9. That's 36x. If we double that, that's 72. And so without having to do any other work, you can actually write the product because it's a perfect square trinomial all in one step. So that's something that you might want to try out, especially in grade 11 math. Keep it in mind, and when you see those, if you think of it, you can take that shortcut. Everything looks great in part B on this page. You've done a great job, and you've shown all your work, which I really like to see, all of the thinking and the sort of work going into the actual factor. Your form is good, you're showing an equals on each line, and so everything's really great here. Let's go over to the next slide. Okay, and so finishing off part B, here's a difference of squares factoring. So you've got a minus 7, a plus 7, that's great. Another difference of squares. Another difference of squares, and so you can always recognize those if you write them as a difference of two square numbers. If you write them like that, sorry, that squared should be out there, then it makes it really easy for you to factor because you've already got the two base numbers that you're going to use in your factor, and you just put one of them plus and one minus, and you've got your, sorry, I forgot the x. You've got your factors very quickly there. Sorry, that's a y, not an x. That's why it looks strange. Okay, so going to part C, we've got a multiple step type of trinomial here. First you have to factor out the 3, which you did, and then you can factor what you have remaining. That's perfect. Now the second one has to be done either through decomposition or through using like an X box kind of factoring. It looks like you've done decomposition in the past. So where you're still using the sum and product, you're just doing it in a little bit different fashion because the first term coefficient is greater than 1. So you're doing a great job on that, and you factored that perfectly. You can always check to make sure that your answer is right by multiplying out those binomials and expanding it to see if you get the original trinomial in the question. So here's slide 3, which is a continuation, I believe, of part C, working our way towards part D. This is great. Again, you're using decomposition to factor number 3, and you've done that perfectly. Number 4, here's another one of those perfect squares that we were talking about. And if you happen to recognize it, it makes it easier to factor because we've got the root of 9x is 3x, the root of 16 is 4, 3x times 4 is 12x, doubled is 24x. And so this one fits the pattern of a perfect square trinomial, and that's why your bracket is squared for your binomial there. So for question 5, so with number 5, you've taken out a common factor of 2 from each of those terms. Don't forget your equal sign on the left-hand side. And when you look at the numbers that are left in your trinomial bracket and we try to factor that further, it actually won't go. So that one is simply just a common factor and not a trinomial factor. And when you look at number 6, c squared plus 144, if that happened to be c squared minus 144, then we would have a difference of squares, wouldn't we? C minus 12 and c plus 12. However, if we have a plus in there, then you're right that it's not factorable, and so your answer is absolutely correct there. Okay, so last page, part D. And this one is tricky, and I like how you did your substitution here. That's an excellent way to approach it. So you've made it into a difference of squares. Factoring your difference of squares gives a minus b plus a plus b, and then you're going to put in your substitution into a and b. This is tricky. Watch for your minus sign in front of the second bracket and make sure that you bring a minus 1 out, which you did, so that's really excellent. That shows that you've got really great skills in the algebra, Nathaniel, and that's really going to help you in grade 11 for sure. So we have 5x plus 5 from this bracket, and then we have x plus 3 from this bracket, and it's factored. So, excellent. All right, for question 2, this one is written a little bit differently, but again, it's kind of like a substitution where if a to the 6 is a cubed times a cubed, we could write it as a cubed squared, or a squared cubed, and if 8a squared is the second term, then we can see if we can make that look like a trinomial. Unfortunately, when we try to do that, it doesn't fit the pattern for the trinomial. If it had been an 8a cubed in the middle, then we could have factored it. Looking at question 3, you did a good job there using decomposition, and here we have that case where we have x cubed, x to the 6th, and we can actually write this as a trinomial as x cubed squared, and then the middle term being just the x cubed term. And so you did a great job factoring that there, and that's perfect. So overall, an excellent test. You're showing some really great skills in the algebra manipulation and the factoring. This is obviously something that you've understood really well before, and it looks to me like it's just kind of a case of review for you in this course for this unit. So I'm glad that you seem to have found it easy and that you've been able to move through it so quickly. So that's awesome.